Imagine this. You're loading up on creatine, the so-called gold standard for muscle growth and strength, yet your reflection in the mirror shows nothing. No gains, no difference. You start to panic. Am I doing this all wrong? Is creatine even working for me? Here's the thing, creatine isn't magic powder. It's science-backed, yes, but it's not going to turn you into a fitness god overnight. And the truth? You're probably using it wrong. If you've been feeling stuck, this video will set the record straight. By the end, you'll not only know how to take creatine the right way, but also avoid the mistakes that sabotage your progress. Stick around, because I'm about to clear up the biggest misconceptions, and yes, I'll answer that question about creatine and protein shakes. Let's fix this mess and get you on the fast track to serious gains. Ready? Let's go. Number 7. Not adjusting your diet. One of the biggest mistakes people make when taking creatine is assuming the supplement will magically work on its own without aligning their diet. Creatine is effective, but its benefits hinge on a well-rounded nutritional foundation. Think of creatine as the icing on the cake, not the cake itself. If your diet is off, creatine will be like putting premium gas into a car with no engine. First and foremost, protein is king when it comes to muscle growth. Creatine supports your muscles by helping with energy production and recovery, but it doesn't provide the building blocks amino acids that your muscles need to repair and grow. If you're not consuming at least 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight daily, you're limiting creatine's potential. Sources like chicken, fish, eggs, and Greek yogurt are staples for a reason. Don't skimp here. But protein isn't the whole story. Carbohydrates play a crucial role in creatine absorption. When you eat carbs, your body releases insulin, which helps transport creatine into your muscle cells. If you're following a low-carb diet or skipping carbs altogether, you're reducing how effectively your body can utilize creatine. Complex carbs like oatmeal, sweet potatoes, and whole grains should be your go-to options for sustained energy and better creatine uptake. Let's talk about calorie intake. Many people undereat while taking creatine, particularly if they're trying to lose weight. Here's the harsh truth. Muscle growth requires a calorie surplus. If you're not eating enough, creatine won't have the fuel it needs to work its magic. Track your caloric intake to ensure you're at least hitting maintenance or slightly above it, especially if gaining muscle is your goal. Micronutrients are often overlooked, but play a big role in maximizing creatine's effectiveness. Magnesium, zinc, and vitamin D are critical for energy production, muscle function, and recovery. Without these, you could be limiting your body's ability to fully capitalize on the benefits of creatine. Foods like nuts, leafy greens, and fortified dairy products should be staples in your diet. Another key consideration is meal timing. If you're serious about muscle growth, you should pair creatine with a post-workout meal or shake that includes protein and carbs. This combination not only supports muscle recovery, but also enhances creatine absorption. A simple shake with whey protein, a banana, and a scoop of creatine can do wonders. Consistency is the name of the game. You can't take creatine sporadically and expect consistent results, just like you can't eat one healthy meal and assume you'll magically get shredded. Your diet needs to be aligned with your goals every single day. Plan ahead meal prep and avoid skipping meals. Creatine is an incredible tool for muscle growth and recovery, but it's not a standalone solution. Without a diet that supports your goals, you're essentially wasting its potential. Optimize your nutrition and you'll unlock creatine's full power. Number 6. Consuming too much caffeine. While caffeine is celebrated as a performance enhancer, especially in pre-workout drinks, overdoing it can actually reduce the effectiveness of creatine. Surprise? Let's dig into why drowning yourself in coffee or energy drinks might be sabotaging your gains. Caffeine is a diuretic, meaning it increases urine production. Creatine, on the other hand, relies heavily on water retention in your muscles to work its magic. The more water you lose, the less effective creatine becomes. Imagine trying to inflate a balloon with holes in it. That's your body on excessive caffeine. It's flushing out the hydration your muscles desperately need to reap creatine's benefits. Now, let's talk about absorption. Creatine is stored in your muscles as phosphocreatine, which helps regenerate ADP adenosine triphosphate, the energy currency for your cells. High caffeine intake can interfere with this process by reducing the absorption of creatine into your muscle cells. Studies suggest that caffeine and creatine might compete for similar pathways, limiting how effectively creatine can perform its job. Another lesser-known issue is caffeine's impact on recovery. Creatine is great for post-workout recovery, reducing muscle soreness and improving repair. But caffeine, especially in high doses, can elevate cortisol levels, the stress hormone. Elevated cortisol can hinder recovery, offsetting some of the benefits you're hoping to gain from creatine supplementation. Moderation is the key here. Does this mean you need to give up your beloved morning coffee? Not at all. Consuming a moderate amount of caffeine, say 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day, is generally fine. But if you're slamming 3 cups of cold brew, a pre-workout shake, and an energy drink all before noon, it's time to scale back. Timing also matters. Drinking caffeine too close to your creatine intake can exacerbate absorption issues. To avoid this, space them out by at least 2 to 3 hours. If you usually mix creatine into your pre-workout drink, consider separating the two and consuming creatine with a post-workout meal instead. If you're worried about energy levels without caffeine, there are alternatives. Creatine itself can boost performance by improving muscular endurance and strength. Pair it with a diet rich in complex carbs for sustained energy. And if you're seeking that mental edge, try nootropic supplements like L-theanine, which promote focus without the jittery crash associated with caffeine. Let's not forget the social aspect. In today's world, caffeine is almost a cultural norm, but constantly relying on it can lead to dependency, which might not just affect your creatine usage, but also your overall health. Chronic overuse can result in tolerance, meaning you need more and more to achieve the same effect. Caffeine and creatine don't have to be enemies, but they certainly aren't the best of friends. Use caffeine wisely. Keep your intake moderate and pay attention to how your body responds. By balancing the two, you can optimize the benefits of both and achieve your fitness goals without compromise. You're enjoying the video, leave your comment, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, click the subscribe button. Number 5. Drinking too little water. Let's talk hydration. Yes, the most basic, yet most ignored factor when it comes to maximizing creatine's potential. You'd be surprised how many people diligently measure their scoops of creatine, but completely overlook the importance of drinking enough water. Without proper hydration, your creatine might as well be pixie dust. Here's the deal with creatine and water retention. When you take creatine, it pulls water into your muscle cells to increase their volume. This is part of what gives you that fuller, more muscular look and enhances your strength. If you're not drinking enough water, there's nothing for creatine to work with. It's like trying to make soup without the broth. You're just left with a sad, dry mess. Dehydration doesn't just stop at sabotaging your gains. It can also lead to some pretty uncomfortable side effects. Headaches, muscle cramps, and even digestive issues like bloating are common complaints among people taking creatine without staying hydrated. These aren't signs that creatine isn't working to your body screaming for water. Let's get practical. How much water should you be drinking? A good rule of thumb is to aim for at least 3 to 4 liters per day when you're supplementing with creatine. But this isn't a one-size-fits-all situation. If you're sweating buckets during an intense workout or live in a hot climate, you'll need even more. Don't wait until you're thirsty. By then, you're already mildly dehydrated. Now, let's bust a myth. Some people believe that creatine causes water retention in a way that makes you look bloated. That's not how it works. The water is stored in your muscles, not under your skin. In fact, proper hydration can actually help reduce the appearance of bloating by flushing out excess sodium and improving your body's fluid balance. One trick to stay hydrated is to pair your water intake with electrolytes. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium help your body retain the water you're drinking and keep your muscles firing on all cylinders. Without electrolytes, you might find yourself running to the bathroom every 5 minutes without actually reaping the hydration benefits. Timing your water intake also matters. Don't chug a gallon right before your workout and call it a day. Instead, sip consistently throughout the day. And yes, that includes during your workout. Even small amounts of dehydration can lead to a drop in performance, which defeats the purpose of taking creatine in the first place. Here's a pro tip: make hydration a habit. Carry a water bottle everywhere. Set reminders on your phone, or use apps that track your intake. If plain water bores you, infuse it with lemon, cucumber, or a splash of fruit juice to make it more appealing. Creatine without water is like a car without fuel, ineffective and frustrating. Keep yourself hydrated, and you'll unlock creatine's full potential while avoiding unnecessary setbacks. Number 4. Relying on insufficient doses in pre-workouts. Let's clear up one of the biggest misconceptions in the fitness world. Just because your favorite pre-workout supplement says it contains creatine doesn't mean you're getting enough to see results. In fact, most pre-workout formulas are notorious for underdosing creatine. It's like sprinkling a pinch of salt on a dish and calling it seasoned. It simply doesn't cut it. Here's the science. To maximize creatine's benefits, the standard daily dose is around 5 grams. This amount is backed by decades of research proving its effectiveness in increasing muscle strength, improving performance, and enhancing recovery. Now, flip over that tub of pre-workout and take a closer look at the label. What do you see? Many pre-workouts contain just 1 to 2 grams of creatine per serving, hardly enough to move the needle. You might be wondering, but isn't a little creatine better than none at all? Sure, 2 grams will give you a marginal boost, but it's far from optimal. Creatine works by saturating your muscle cells, and underdosing means you're not fully replenishing those stores. The result? You're leaving gains on the table. Another issue is timing. Pre-workouts are designed to deliver an immediate energy boost, thanks to ingredients like caffeine and beta-alanine. But creatine isn't an immediate impact supplement. It builds up in your system over time, so the timing of when you take it is less critical than the consistency of your intake. Relying solely on pre-workouts for creatine is like expecting one meal to sustain you for a week. It's just not how it works. So, what's the solution? Use pure creatine monohydrate alongside your pre-workout. Creatine monohydrate is affordable, widely studied, and incredibly effective. You can mix it into water, juice, or even your post-workout shake to ensure you're hitting the 5-gram target daily. If you prefer taking creatine with your pre-workout, simply add an extra scoop to the mix. Let's address another common mistake: skipping creatine on rest days. Some people believe they only need creatine on workout days, but this approach hinders muscle saturation. Remember, creatine is about maintaining consistent levels in your muscles. On rest days, take your dose with a meal to keep your stores topped up. Don't forget to check the ingredient list on your pre-workout. Many include proprietary blends, making it impossible to know exactly how much creatine you're getting. If the label doesn't explicitly state the amount, assume it's not enough and supplement accordingly. Relying on pre-workout supplements for your creatine intake is like trying to fill a swimming pool with a garden hose. It's inefficient and leaves you far from your goals. Take control of your supplementation by investing in standalone creatine and making it a consistent part of your routine. You'll thank yourself when those strength gains start rolling in. Number 3. Expecting instant results. Here's a reality check. Creatine is not a magic wand that turns you into the Hulk overnight. Too many people start supplementing and expect to see massive strength gains or noticeable muscle growth within days. That's not how it works. Creatine isn't a pre-workout stimulant. It's a tool for building long-term performance. First, let's understand how creatine works. When you take it, the supplement is stored in your muscles as phosphocreatine, which is used to regenerate ADP adenosine triphosphate. ADP is your body's energy currency, especially for short, explosive movements like lifting weights or sprinting. The key here is that creatine doesn't deliver results immediately. It takes time to saturate your muscles fully, usually around 7 to 28 days, depending on your dosage and whether or not you do a loading phase. So, what does this mean for you? It means patience is non-negotiable. Those extra reps or increased weight on the bar come after your muscles are consistently fueled with creatine. Think of it like filling up a gas tank. You can't drive your car on an empty tank and expect top speed. Creatine works similarly. You need to give your muscles enough time to store the fuel they need to perform better. This brings us to the infamous loading phase. Many people opt to take 20 grams of creatine daily for the first 5 to 7 days to speed up the saturation process. While this approach can yield faster results, it's not mandatory. If you prefer a steady, low-dose approach, taking 3 to 5 grams daily will still get you to the same endpoint. It just takes a little longer. Let's address another expectation issue. Creatine doesn't work without effort. If your workouts are lazy or inconsistent, creatine isn't going to save you. It enhances your ability to push harder and recover faster, but you still need to put in the work. Creatine is a performance amplifier, not a shortcut. Some people stop taking creatine after a week or two because they don't feel anything. But what they don't realize is that creatine's benefits are often subtle. You might not feel a sudden surge of energy, but you'll notice over time that you can lift heavier, recover quicker, and train harder. It's like planting a seed. The growth isn't instant, but the results are worth the wait. The idea of instant results also creates unrealistic expectations. Some might mistake initial water retention for fat gain, panicking, and discontinuing the supplement. The water retention is a good thing. It's how your muscles store creatine and stay hydrated for better performance. If you're frustrated by the lack of immediate changes, remember that creatine is a long game. The strength and endurance gains you're looking for will come with consistency. Don't let impatience rob you of the full benefits. Number 2, doing the wrong type of training. Hard truth. Not all workouts are created equal when it comes to maximizing creatine's benefits. Some people think they can pop their creatine supplement, jog a few miles, and see dramatic results. Creatine doesn't work that way. If you're relying on cardio or low-intensity activities, you're missing out on its real power. Let's break it down. Creatine shines brightest in high-intensity, short-duration exercises. Why? Because it boosts your muscles' ability to regenerate ATP, the primary energy source for explosive movements. Think heavy squats, sprints, or Olympic lifts. These anaerobic activities deplete ATP quickly, and that's where creatine steps in to save the day, letting you push harder, longer, and with more intensity. On the flip side, if you're spending hours doing steady-state cardio or leisurely yoga sessions, creatine won't have much of a role. These types of exercises rely on the aerobic system, which uses oxygen for energy, not creatine. Sure, creatine might give you a slight edge in endurance over time, but it's not designed to fuel a marathon. So, what kind of training should you focus on? Let's start with heavy resistance training. Lifting weights in the 4 to 6 rep range with maximal effort is ideal. These sets demand quick bursts of power, draining your ATP reserves and giving creatine a chance to shine. Want to add an edge? Include compound lifts like deadlifts, squats, and bench presses. These exercises engage multiple muscle groups, amplifying the impact of creatine. Another effective approach is high-intensity interval training HIIT. Short, explosive intervals followed by brief rest periods push your anaerobic system to its limits. For instance, a 20-second all-out sprint followed by a 40-second rest, repeated for 10 rounds, is a perfect scenario for creatine to work its magic. Creatine is most effective when paired with consistent overload. This means gradually increasing the weight, reps, or intensity of your workouts. Without this progression, you're not giving your muscles a reason to adapt and grow. Remember, creatine enhances performance, but it can't force you to train harder. You've got to meet it halfway. One overlooked aspect of training with creatine is rest between sets. Since creatine improves recovery, You can afford slightly shorter rest periods, just enough to maintain high intensity without burning out. For example, instead of waiting 3 minutes between heavy sets, you might rest for 2 minutes, squeezing more volume into your workout. But let's address a common pitfall: overtraining. Some people mistakenly believe that creatine will protect them from burnout. While it does improve recovery, it's not a free pass to overdo it. Pushing too hard without adequate rest can lead to injuries, fatigue, and a plateau in progress. Balance is key. Here's where it gets interesting. Creatine can also help improve your neuromuscular efficiency, meaning your brain and muscles communicate better during intense efforts. This translates to smoother lifts, better coordination, and more efficient energy use. But again, this only applies if you're doing the right kind of training. If you're still unconvinced, consider this. Studies show that athletes who combine creatine with resistance training see greater strength and muscle gains compared to those who train without it. It's a proven partnership, but it only works if you're putting in the right kind of effort. Number 1. Using multiple forms of creatine. One of the most common mistakes people make with creatine is overcomplicating things. They fall into the trap of thinking that mixing multiple forms of creatine monohydrate, hydrochloride ethyl ester, buffered creatine, and even creatine gummies will somehow lead to better results. Let me stop you right there. This isn't an Avengers movie. You don't need a team of creatine types to maximize your gains. Creatine monohydrate has been the gold standard for decades. Why? Because it's the most studied, the most effective, and the most affordable form of creatine. If creatine were a rock band, monohydrate would be the lead singer. The others, backup dancers at best. Now, you might wonder, why do all these other forms of creatine exist? Marketing. Companies love to rebrand creatine with fancy names and claim that their version absorbs better, causes less bloating, or is gentler on the stomach. Here's the thing, for most people, monohydrate works just fine. Studies have shown that alternative forms rarely outperform it in terms of absorption or efficacy. Here's where using multiple forms of creatine can actually backfire. Mixing several types can make it difficult to track your daily dose. If you're using a blend of monohydrate HCl and some other new and improved creatine, you might accidentally overdo it, or worse, underdose. Creatine works best when taken consistently at 3 to 5 grams per day. Straying too far from that range can reduce its effectiveness or lead to unnecessary side effects like digestive discomfort. Another issue with stacking different forms is cost. Let's be honest, creatine is supposed to be one of the most budget-friendly supplements out there. But when you start buying fancy hybrids or pre-mixed blends, you're burning through cash for little to no added benefit. You're better off sticking to the basics and spending your savings on other essentials, like protein or high-quality food. Let's not forget the placebo effect. People who mix multiple creatine types often convince themselves they're getting superior results, simply because they're paying more or using a special formula. But science tells a different story. Those extra dollars you're spending, they're likely going straight to the supplement company's marketing budget. If you're worried about things like bloating or stomach sensitivity with creatine monohydrate, there's an easy fix: micronized creatine. This version is processed into smaller particles, making it easier to mix with water and gentler on the stomach. No need to branch out into uncharted creatine territory. One common argument for using multiple forms is better absorption. Creatine HCl, for instance, is often touted for its solubility in water. But here's the catch. Once creatine enters your body, it all does the same thing: boost your phosphocreatine stores. The absorption rates for these alternatives are rarely significant enough to justify their hype. For those new to creatine, starting with monohydrate simplifies things. You're not juggling forms or second-guessing your choice. You're taking a proven, effective supplement in its most straightforward form. If you're still tempted to experiment with multiple forms, think about this. The more variables you introduce, the harder it becomes to identify what's actually working. Sticking to one type of creatine allows you to measure its effectiveness more accurately. Here's the takeaway. Creatine is not a the more, the merrier situation. You don't need a buffet of creatine types to see results. Pick one, preferably monohydrate, and stay consistent. That's how you'll maximize strength, muscle growth, and performance without complicating things unnecessarily. And with that, you're now armed with everything you need to avoid the most common creatine mistakes. Stay consistent, stay hydrated, and train smart. Your muscles will thank you. You liked the video? Leave your comment, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, click the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.